Hello there! Have you ever felt like all the world's a stage and you're on it, and then suddenly a trapdoor releases and you fall through into the void? Well, I've felt that way too. Watch the following video, like or subscribe, and peace. Hello there, my name is Billy Juliana. I'm 49 years old and I have a 40-year history of dealing with anorexia nervosa, and I'm currently following the recovery methods espoused by Tabitha Farrar, Kayla Rose Katecki, and Elisa Orris. And last week I made a video that covers the common hang-ups that hinder anorexia recovery, and this week I'm going to continue that series. But as I was considering all of the topics and the hang-ups that I have faced that hinder anorexia recovery, I stumbled across one that I was like, oops, this one warrants its own video. So yes, this is a hindrance to anorexia recovery. It's a major hang-up, but the reason why it warrants its own video is because I struggle with this on a large scale, on big time, and to the extent that I have not solved this issue for myself. Aww. So I am not speaking on this problem with any kind of expertise or wise experience, because I really struggle with this problem. And I know you're thinking, well, what is it? What's the hang up? No pun intended. It's comparison. Yes, comparison is such a difficult topic for me, and inevitably it always leads to competition. Like, there is no time lapse in my brain between a comparative thought and a competitive thought. They just go right hand in hand together. And so I struggle with this all the time, and I usually come out on the short end of the stick. When I compare myself, the competition arises and I end up on the short end of the competition. There are rare occasions when I end up on the upper end of the competition and I have a disproportionate reaction. I'm like, woohoo, like a little kid, which just informs me all the more the reasons why I use comparison so often to my detriment. Because there's a part of me that really struggles with being an adult. And so I really am looking around and I'm constantly comparing like a radar. Compare. And I'm always like, oh boy, everybody's doing better than I am. So I'm going to end up going back into my eating disorder, restricting myself somehow, shielding myself somehow, so that I don't have to function fully as an adult. Now, this is where the video gets even more messy, because I realize already that I am comparing myself to viewers potentially watching this video. And I'm thinking, you know what? A lot of my viewers are highly functioning adults. They're not going to understand your childlike desires, and you're way behind all the fully functioning adults that your viewers happen to be. And so they're not going to understand this comparative problem that you're having. They might understand it vis-a-vis the eating disorder, because we all know that the eating disorder world is quite comparative and quite competitive. Ooh, it's ugly in the eating disorder world. Those two things get really enhanced and amplified when the eating disorder starts. And so within that world, yeah, we all understand the comparative, competitive problem within the eating disorder world, yeah. But I'm talking about comparison just in general. I struggle with this in general. And yes, the comparisons that I make do feed the eating disorder. And yet the problem is that all human beings do compare. There's no way that I'm going to be able to say, okay, I'm going to rewire the comparison piece out of my brain entirely, because it's just not helping me. Because we all have comparison in there, built in there in our DNA as a survival mechanism. It's like emotions, you know, it's just there. And of course, there was a famous study done on this, the social comparative theory, back in 1954. So all humans do compare on some level. And so I'm not going to be able to exorcise comparison from my brain. But I need to really rethink how I use comparison to my detriment. So there is a part of me that just is very fearful of living in the world as an adult. And so I worry and I stress all the time about what other people are doing, and I'm constantly looking around, like I said, like a radar, compare, and like I said, coming up short. But it's a way in which my brain is cleverly keeping me in this state where I don't have to function fully as an adult. And like I said, I feel funny saying that because I know so many people on the other end of the camera there are fully functioning adults that just happen to be really struggling with eating disorders and really want to get rid of the eating disorder. And so this weird childlike comparison thing, what are you talking about? So I understand there may be a little bit of oddity there, but bear with me. I appreciate your indulging this strange video. But maybe you can relate to this. This is something that I saw on television the other day, and I was like, whoa. It was a rerun of the Coen brothers' masterpiece film, No Country for Old Men. You can already tell by the title of the film, which basically is a line from a Yeats poem written over 100 years ago. You can tell from the title that there's comparison going on already. But if you've not seen the film, really it's basically the most simple interpretation I can give for you is that it's an allegory of good versus evil. That's the most simple way I can interpret it. An allegory of good versus evil. And the good is represented by a sheriff who is serving a small county in southern Texas. And the evil is represented by this one character who runs around wreaking havoc of all kinds in that small county. And the sheriff is trying to catch up with the evil character, and the evil character is outstripping the sheriff. So the sheriff is feeling very weary at this point. And by the way, he's at the end of his career for the most part. He could go on being a sheriff, but he's choosing to retire. And so at one point towards the end of the film, while the evil character is running riot out in the county, the sheriff goes to visit a friend, and the friend asks him pointedly, he says, "Sheriff, why are you retiring?" And the sheriff looks out the window and he thinks about it for a moment, and then he goes, "I don't know. I just feel outmatched." And I was like, what? When I heard that, I was like, I feel that way. I relate. I know what that feeling feels like. I know. I feel outmatched. He's an adult. He's a sheriff, and he feels outmatched too. Oh my gosh, I relate. So maybe you do relate to that. Do any of y'all feel outmatched? With all the social media and all that that's going on, it just seems like there's this rising tide of young, very special and talented people. And I'm like, holy smokes, I'm outmatched. There's no way. But I gotta hang on to myself before I go back down and fall into the trap door that is the eating disorder, and try to go back to that childlike state and run and hide. I gotta hold on here. I'm a full-grown adult. I happen to have made it miraculously to age nearly 50. So I'm a full-grown adult. And yes, we are all on this stage, and there are times when I feel overwhelmed, and I feel like that sheriff, I feel outmatched. And yet I am existing. I have a place in the world, and I can claim that place. And I need to stay on the stage and not be looking for the trapdoors so that I can just vanish away and go down into the eating disorder darkness. Because let me tell you, the eating disorder does not help. Despite my perceptions about how the eating disorder has helped, it doesn't help. And so I need to be on the stage up here with everyone else because that happens to be where I am. And I just need to claim my place. And for right now, I can just sit. I don't have to tap dance. I don't have to be a circus performer. I can just sit on the stage and eat the food that I want to eat. That's it. And yes, I am an adult, and I will navigate the adult world if I am better nourished and if I feed myself And if I get rid of the whole ball and chain that is the eating disorder and all of the perception of how the eating disorder helps me. Now, I know you're probably wondering, well, so where are you going with comparison on this? And I'm like, I really don't know. Because, like I said, I'm still working on comparison and competition. This is still a problem for me. I feel like that sheriff all the time. I feel outmatched. But I do know this, I don't want to have the eating disorder anymore. And I do know that any kind of comparison that I make that helps feed the eating disorder or that shortchanges me in some way is only going to keep me sick. And so I need to stay on that stage and claim my place and eat the food that I need to eat. Just sit down and eat the food that I need to eat. All of the food that I desire. That is required, because if I'm desiring a lot of food, it's because my body needs that amount of food. And if I'm looking around while I'm eating and stuff and I'm comparing while I'm doing that and it's not helping, then I need to be very mindful of that. So this is the part where the rewiring does become applicable, is that I can rewire my reactions to the comparisons I make and not always come up on the short end of the stick. You know, I make these very grandiose comparisons. You know, I basically compare myself to perhaps Billie Eilish. She's another Billie running around out there. And when you Google my name, you usually get her. And she's not even 20 years old. And I compare myself to her. Hello. I am who I am. And by the way, I was Billie before Billie. You know, I was here before you, girl. Your name ain't that unique. But anyway, I'm sorry. I'm competing already. So you see, I'm a bit all over the place with this particular topic, and it warrants a video of its own because I obviously need therapy and help in this issue, and I'm working diligently with my therapist about comparison and competition. But I do know, again, basically, I want to get rid of the eating disorder. So my place on the stage right now is just to get rid of the eating disorder and to do all the work that I need to do to get rid of the eating disorder. And if I'm looking around again, anything that's not helpful, I need to spot. This is where my my hard adult work comes in. I need to spot the data that is coming in and that whole comparison stuff. And if it's being naughty and it's sending me back down that trapdoor, I need to hoist myself back up onto that stage and say, I'm not going to let that thought take me down the trapdoor. I'm going to just continue to eat and feed myself. So with that, I think I'll just close for today and say that, yeah, comparison and competition, major hang-up hindering recovery from anorexia. And so I need to look at the ways in which comparison and the competitive piece are not helping with my recovery. And if I'm shortchanging myself all the time, then I need to rewire my beliefs about that. And I really need to stay present and stay on that stage and claim my space, because if I exist, I have a space. That's it. Everyone out there who exists has a space. So with that, I'll just say, please eat unrestrictedly, rest for a prolonged period, don't worry about body weight, try not to make ugly comparisons of yourself against others, and until next time, peace.